All right, so I think I'm live, and I'm set up on a bunch of different devices. So if it looks like I'm looking around at a bunch of different screens, it's because, oh, one more to go. All right, cool. So I am live. Wow, I am live. All right, cool. So what's up, guys? It's Thursday. It's afternoon or early evening, and today I want to talk about muscle activation and make sure that I'm not getting blinded in the process. Let's move that so reflection isn't there. Cool. So today, what's up, Clayton? Clayton's a member. He's going to be doing this program, the Strength Foundations course. And a big part of that is muscle activation. That's why I want to talk about muscle activation today. All right, so we've got Instagram. What's up, guys? Facebook over here, and then I've got YouTube up here. So everybody's here, all social media channels. And I want to start off with just talking, just kind of introduce people to the concept of muscle activation. And I guess I'll talk about kind of how I stumbled on this and why it's important to me. So muscle activation, as it pertains to fitness, refers to your ability to engage a muscle in exercise. So this means being able to properly engage your glutes while doing a squat, or using your core when you're doing a deadlift, or using your core when you're doing a balance exercise, keeping your core engaged while you're doing an overhead pressing motion or a handstand or anything like that. And it basically is your ability to exercise, to use muscles. And the reason why it's something that has to be discussed is because most of us have really big issues with muscle activation. Samuel, I'm going to get to you. Hold on to the questions. I'm going to get to them as soon as I kind of explain muscle activation. Thank you for your question, though. So the reason why muscle activation is such an important topic is because most of us have issues with muscle activation. And that's because we don't spend all day working out. We don't spend all day being active. Now, when we had less sedentary lives, when we were moving around more often, when we weren't sitting in chairs, we didn't have this issue of muscle activation. It was much easier for us to just get up and move and to use our bodies the way that we were supposed to. But if you're inactive for even hours at a time or days at a time, and many of us have been inactive for months or years, those muscles just don't work the way that they're supposed to. So your muscles are connected to your brain by what's called neural pathways. And this is basically your mind-body connection. And these have to be developed. They don't just automatically happen. And to do full body exercises is one way to do it, but most of us don't have the proper muscle activation in order to do these full body movements properly. So what we have to do is focus on very simple exercises, simple but often effective exercises that train us to engage those muscles, that help us to correct and to improve that muscle activation, so that when we want to use those muscles in full body exercises, we can actually do so. And that's why muscle activation is so important, because most people aren't doing these type of exercises to engage these muscles about today. So some of the biggest problems when it comes to muscle activation or a lack of muscle activation are particularly in your upper back and your shoulders. And that's because we spend a lot of time right in this rounded position forward like this. Another issue is in your glutes, so in your butt muscles, and that's because we're sitting down a lot during the day. Your hips are inactive because, again, we're sitting down. The core is inactive because even if we are standing up, we're probably not sitting up with good posture, right? We're probably doing something like this, where we're rounding or we're slouching, and we're just not using our core muscles. Your core muscles are what hold you upright. And as soon as you sit down, as soon as your feet relax on the ground and you're not really pushing down into the ground, your core disengages. So the big problem with all of that is your glutes, your core, and your hips are the powerhouse of your body. And without those muscles, what's going to happen is you end up using your knees more. You end up using your lower back more. And that's why people have pain in their knees and their lower back when they exercise, because that's all they're using when they work out. So that's why muscle activation is really important. And just doing full body exercises, just repetitive, going to the gym is not going to help with your muscle activation, with improving your muscle activation. You have to address them with specific exercises to work on that muscle activation. So you have to specifically target your glutes. You have to specifically target your core, your upper back and your shoulders. And there are exercises that do all that, but most people aren't doing them. And you're probably not going to find them in a yoga class. You won't find them in your typical gym workout. And most people aren't doing these exercises. So the cool thing about this is, or maybe the cool thing about this is, most people have these issues. Even if you've been working out for decades, you probably have muscle activation issues unless you specifically addressed it. The reason why most people would address these issues of muscle activation are if they've been injured in the past and they have to go to physical therapy and kind of learn these really basic exercises. Or maybe you have a program that you're following that specifically does these exercises, but most programs don't. So my thought is, well, why are we going to wait? Why do we wait to get injured to work on these weaknesses? Why don't we just work on them now? Why shouldn't there be a program that addresses these weaknesses and that goes through all these things and address these common weaknesses to prevent common injuries and help people stay strong and get stronger? And more than just preventing injury, this is also going to improve your overall performance. You'll move better. You'll be able to lift more. You'll have less joint pain. You'll recover more quickly. You'll feel like you got a more complete workout. Your workouts will be more efficient. You'll get more done in more time. So that's why muscle activation is so important. If you're doing it correctly, all of those benefits are available. All right, so let's get into some of the questions now. By the way, this is an AMA, so feel free to ask questions. I will give priority to questions that have to do with muscle activation, as opposed to, I don't know, random other questions. So let's get started. We've got a few questions over on Facebook. What's an easy, quick muscle activation for the chest? I would hold a push-up at the low position of a push-up. So I would do a push-up, right? Let's imagine I'm on the ground, and I would lower down to here, and then I would squeeze and squeeze and squeeze my pecs. And that's what I would do to work on muscle activation for the chest. You're also going to get some nice core engagement when you're doing that. It is pretty difficult. You can also do, if you have access to a bench press, you can do some really slow ones. You can do some really slow bench press exercises. That's going to help. All right, cool. So next one, how do you start when you have let your muscles get super tight? So Kevin, if your mobility precedes everything else. So if you don't have adequate mobility to do the exercises that you want to do, then you have to work on your mobility first. So I would say that you should, number one, you may not also have that muscle activation. You just may not have that control over your muscles. So I would say that you need to do some stretching in order to loosen up those muscles. Those muscles are active. If they're really tight, they're probably active. If they're weak, then they aren't active. So sometimes muscles are tight and not just weak. Sometimes muscles are weak in addition to being tight. So I would say you should start with some stretching. You should start with some kind of basic exercises to try and figure out whether or not you are tight or you're weak. And then I would definitely keep on with the stretching and then also start to do some muscle activation exercises to help with that. Other question. We've got one from YouTube over here. We've got random comments that I can't respond to on Instagram. All right, just a guy, what yoga moves are good for core activation? All right, so best yoga move for a core activation is boat pose. Boat pose is incredible for turning on your core, and it's just a very good exercise for turning on your core. So I would highly recommend doing a boat pose if you know what that is. If you don't, then oh my gosh, Heather's here. Hi, Heather. I'm waving at you. Heather, I train Heather once a week for the last, and her girlfriends for the last like 4 years. All right, cool. So crow to headstand, arms straight or bent. That doesn't have anything to do with this, but crow to headstand, arms straight or bent. Let me see here. I would straighten the arms and then I would extend, because it's going to be hard to press up with your hand. It's gonna, once you get your legs extended, it'll be tough to press your arms up and like doing a full handstand push-up. So I would say arms straight and then extend your legs. Clayton, how long do you recommend time-wise to do these muscle activation exercises, sets and reps? So you can do these a few different ways, and I would do them different ways. So number one, Clayton, I would hold them for at least 30 seconds. And if you want to do multiple reps, I would do 2 reps total. You can give yourself 5 or 10 second seconds rest between them. But you can also do them with, sorry, lost my train of thought. You can also do 5 or 10 second reps, and you can also do 2 second reps. So it's more so about just feeling the muscle engaged, squeezing and tightening for a minimum of 1 to 2 seconds, and then releasing the muscle, letting it relax, and then training yourself to retrain, and then doing it again. So you're forcing yourself to re-engage that muscle. So that way you're actually practicing muscle engagement. And yeah, at first I would start with a longer hold. So I would start with like 30 to 45 seconds at first. And then as you get used to it, then you can lower it down to maybe 5 or 10 second reps. And then from there down to 2 second reps. But total time under tension, you want to do at least 30 seconds. And I would say 60 seconds is way better. All right. Other questions. I saw some on Instagram. So let me see what the comments were. Oh boy, this is a real question. Exciting. Would you do 20 to 30 minutes of muscle activation before lifting weights? Absolutely. So before I lift weights at all, and all of my deadlifting workouts, all of my squat workouts involve muscle activation first. I spend about a good 15 minutes working on muscle activation, making sure all the muscles are firing, making sure I've got the necessary mobility, which involves just a little bit of yoga, not too much stretching, more so just focusing on postures that work a little bit into my mobility, but not passively stretching at all. And then when I actually do lift weights, I don't have to do that much to get exhausted. I'll do like 15 or 20 minutes of weights after I do muscle activation, and then I'm pretty good. I'm pretty much done. All right. Another question, what muscles would you activate to prevent any knee discomfort, calves, quads, and hamstrings? So if you have issues with your knees and exercises, that means that you're not using, number one, your glutes. So you need to make sure you're using your glutes. You need to make sure you're using your hips. And number 3, you need to make sure you're using your core. And I'm going to demonstrate why. So the reason why is because when you do a squat, if you tend to lean forward like this, the weight goes in your knees, right? And that's why you have knee pain, because you're putting all the weight in the knees. And that's because you don't have the core strength or the hip strength to be able to lean back and put the weight in your glutes and your core. So if you have issues in your knee when you exercise, it's because you're not using your glutes and you're not using your core. All right, so that's for Dr. Ake Rogers. All righty. Samuel, I get bad referral pain in my glutes when I've done a hike. What do you mean by referral pain in your glutes? I know what referral pain is, but in your glutes, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Do you mean you get sore in your glutes, or you mean like your butt hurts when you're walking? Chuku Kit, I always fall over in boats. Yeah, you got to practice it. I would also put your feet on the ground first. So don't worry about lifting your legs off the ground in boat pose. Keep your feet on the ground. Make sure that your back is straight. Make sure that you feel your hip flexors engaging. And then you can slowly work to lifting your feet off the ground. But if you can't, if you're just lifting your legs up and falling over, that's not doing anything for you. So keep your feet on the ground. You can also hold your hands kind of onto your knees, right? So you can kind of do this where you're holding your hands onto the tops of your knees. And you can work on kind of holding yourself up here like this. And this is much better than just lifting your legs off and not just falling over, right? Because that's not going to do anything for you. So keep your feet on the ground, bring your hands to your knees, and then make sure your spine is flat for improving boat pose. All right, thank you. Really good info. Glad you enjoyed. All right, let's see here. Good workout to get back into when you haven't done exercise for a while. Yoga, and particularly yoga that is focused on proper muscle activation. And that's exactly the program that we're launching next week. So if you haven't done a workout in a while, and if you haven't worked out in a while and you want to make sure you're getting back and doing the movements efficiently and doing them properly and not setting yourself up for injury, this new program I just invented and came up with, and it's going to be incredible. And it's called the Manful Yoga Strength Foundations course. We're launching it on Monday in the members area. I'm going to leave a comment here so you guys can see it. But this is actually, I'm glad you asked that, Sam, because the reason I created this program is for people who are it's one huge reason is because people who are getting back into exercise don't understand how they should be using their body. And I don't want them to jump into a program without using their muscles correctly, because that can lead to all the things that I talked about. It can lead to joint pain. It can lead to injury. It can lead to inefficient exercise. It's going to make your workouts less effective. You're going to get worse results. And it all comes down to using the muscles correctly. So this is exactly what I would recommend anybody who's new to working out and getting back into working out. So I'm going to give you a link. Sam, strength. It's training. It's manfulyoga.com/training/strength foundations-course. And you're definitely going to want to check that out. So speaking of the program, is there going to be more detailed info? Yeah, Clayton, if you've been, so I sent out an email about this with detailed info a couple days ago. So you just need to make sure to check your email. But you can also check it out at that link that I just typed in the chat, manfulyoga.com/training/strength-foundations-course. But yeah, there's additional information on that program. It's already on the blog. It's in the training section. And it's there. I sent out an email about it too. And I'm also going to send out another email tomorrow that's going to give you a bit more information on muscle activation and just a little bit more coherently as opposed to this video presentation. So if you're not already on my email list, you want to see that, go to manfulyoga.com/intro, enter your name and email, sign up, and then you'll be able to get it when I send that out tomorrow. All right, cool. So other questions. We had a question. What's this? Vincent from Chile. This is a talk about improving your muscle activation and why it's important in the first place, muscle, and use it. So for example, if I were just to lift my leg out like this, to hold my leg, my hand, and then bring it out here, this is passive range of motion. This requires no muscle activation whatsoever. If I were to extend my leg, though, without using my hand and to hold it up with just the strength of my leg, that requires muscle activation. That requires the ability to control my hip flexors to flex my hip and lift my leg. And if I don't have that muscle activation, then I won't be able to do that. So that's the difference between passive range of motion and active range of motion. And again, you need to have muscle activation to be able to control your muscles. So that's the difference. Let me see what else here. What are the best exercises for muscle chest? Do eccentric bench press if you want to build a big chest. So you want to do a bench press, and then you want to focus on slowly bringing the weight down and then coming back up probably in a 1 second. But you're probably not going to get a huge chest alone just by doing yoga. In fact, you probably won't. So you're going to need to be doing resistance training for sure if you want to get a big chest. And just for the sake of efficiency, there's no reason not to do it. I never understood. I mean, I do understand the people who just want to do yoga to get in great shape, but you're denying yourself of so many different types of exercises and different ways of getting stronger. And you're kind of just shooting yourself in the foot, because the goals that you're after, yeah, you can get there if you want to spend a lot more time in it for it to take a lot more months. But if you want the results and you want to get there quicker, my number one recommendation for fitness is combining yoga with resistance training. So that means Sometimes you're doing body weight training. Sometimes you're doing yoga. Sometimes you're doing muscle activation focused yoga. Sometimes you're focusing on active mobility and balancing postures in yoga. And then sometimes you're focusing on restorative postures to help with recovery. But then you need to make sure that you're doing resistance training, because that's what's going to put the necessary stress on your muscles to grow. Yoga complements strength training. It helps you stay healthy. It helps you learn the correct movement patterns, and it makes you more effective at your weightlifting. But yoga on its own is not enough to build muscle. But weightlifting on its own is not enough to stay healthy. So you need to use both. Let's see here. Samuel, hope you visit Australia one day. Yes, me too. That would be fun. Some other things. Let's see here. Hank Rogers, more questions. Would you need to strengthen the piriformis or gluteus medius to open both hips even deeper? And if so, how can you activate them? Yeah, so there's a few exercises to strengthen your glute med in this program, but one of the easiest ones is to wrap a resistance or TheraBand around your feet like this, and then just kind of walk sideways. You want to make sure that you're in a proper hip hinge. So your butt is straight back, your knees are just slightly over or behind the toes. And then you're just walking sideways with that band, just really nice and slowly like that. So that's what you would do to help with your glute med. If you're trying to open your hips further, yeah, that's going to help, because that external rotation is going to help your hips open further. And one of the other exercises that I like to do is just a basic external hip rotation drill, which is where I just lift up like this, and then I open up. So I pretend like I'm doing a pigeon, and I just, as much as I can, I try to open up my leg like this, getting my inner thigh facing up, getting my outer thigh facing down. And I'll just practice that kind of for a couple minutes, switching sides, going back and forth. And the more external rotation you can get, the more your hips are going to open. That's interesting flow, bro. I'll check it out. Keep it up. Thanks, Vincenti. That's a funny comment. All right, so some other reasons why muscle resistance pain is radiating goes down my glutes, my lower leg. Referral pain. Samuel, that might be caused by tightness of your piriformis. So I would do try doing some pigeon and try doing reclined figure 4 to help with that. All right, so some other reasons why proper muscle activation is so important is because when I talk with people, the same issues tend to come up over and over again. And most of those issues can be solved by the right exercises to improve your muscle activation. So for example, before I kind of talked about, I think somebody had a question about knee pain during exercise. And the reason why knee pain exists, for the most part, there are, some people have specific problems with the joint itself. But for the most part, the issues with knees are that we're giving our knees way too much work to do because our hips, our glutes, and our core aren't helping out in exercises that they should be. So for example, when we're doing a squat, that should involve your glutes, your hips, your hip flexors, and your core. What usually happens though is you're only using your quadriceps. And if we were to improve muscle activation in those other areas, again, the hips, the core, your glutes, then that knee pain wouldn't happen. If we improved your technique, if we showed you the right muscles to be using and talked about where you should be feeling the exercise, and you started actually leaning back into a squat and using your glutes and using your core to hold yourself upright instead of falling forward and putting all the weight in your knees, then you wouldn't have that knee pain. It would start to go away as you improve your form. Some other things that come up a lot. I know in yoga a lot, what I hear is shoulder pain because people hurt themselves when they're doing the chaturanga or the vinyasa movement. So when they round their shoulders like this and they come down into the plank and then they push up into a down dog, usually what's happening there is people aren't using their upper back muscles. They have weak scapular stabilizers. These muscles between your shoulder blades are weak. And when that happens, the shoulders tend to round forward, and we have issues in this area. And then we've got pain when we lift our arms overhead, and we don't want to really do much overhead motion or even lift our arms up at all. And again, that's caused by weakness in the upper back and lack of muscle activation there. So improving your scapular stabilizers, improving the muscle activation there is going to help. And one other big reason why that pain happens in yoga is because a lot of people who do yoga don't do pulling exercises, right? You need to have some sort of pulling exercise in your routine to keep your shoulders healthy. If all you're doing are planks and down dogs, that's all pushing motions. There's nothing where we're actually pulling like this and resisting something. Yes, we're doing cobras, but that's not enough we're not actually pulling anything with the cobra. We're not resisting anything. It's squeezing those muscles, but it's not actually developing significant strength in those muscles because we're not adding some resistance. So that's a reason why people have shoulder issues. One more question. Does muscle activation indirectly or directly lead to muscle growth? Yes, it directly leads to muscle growth. So improving your muscle activation helps you recruit more muscle fibers to the movement. And that means that you're able to perform more work, which leads to more muscle growth. So yes, improved muscle activation leads to direct muscle growth. It is a direct fact. Can weakness cause fatigue? Yes. Yes. Weakness is fatigue. I mean, muscles reach fatigue because they're weak or because they're exhausted. So yes. So other issues that come up when it comes to muscle activation, right? So I talked about issues with squats. I talked about issues with push-ups. Some other issues are deadlifting. A lot of people have issues with deadlift. Now, a lot of that comes down to improper movement with their spine, because a lot of people with deadlifting, they don't do a proper hip hinge. They tend to round their back, and that puts a huge amount of stress on your lower back. And that's a big reason why there's pain in your lower back from deadlifting, because you're rounding your back. Another reason, though, is because people aren't using their glutes properly in a deadlift. They tend to only use their lower back, and they're not using their core to support their lower back. So again, all of that pressure is going into the lower back instead of in the glutes and the core where it should be. And the reason why these same muscle groups keep coming up is because these are the muscle groups that are negatively affected by being sedentary, right? So sitting at a desk, and then going straight into your workout, or sitting during the day, or coming home and sitting on the couch at night. All of these things cause weakness in your glutes and in your core. And the issue is when you go over to exercise, even if, the issue is that even when you go over to exercise sorry, my fiance just joined and I'm really nervous because she's a physical therapist. She's going to point out something I say slightly wrong. So the problem with muscle activation, the problem with inactivity in your glutes and your core when you're sitting, is that your muscles don't automatically turn on when you start to exercise. You have to do exercises that help to activate these muscles in order to make sure that they're firing when you exercise. And for some people, even doing that is enough. You have to actually develop the strength. It's kind of like, I kind of like to describe it as a team job. So let's say that's a 5-person job and only 3 people show up. And the 3 people that show up are certain muscle groups, right? Let's say like your knees show up, so your quadriceps show up. Let's say your hamstrings show up, but your glutes and your core aren't working with you. That means that all the pressure is in those other muscle groups, and that your glutes aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Your core isn't doing what it's supposed to do. And that's why you have unnecessary tension in the knees. So it sucks. It means that your exercise is inefficient. It means that you're developing muscular imbalances, and ultimately leads to pain and injury. Hold on, taking a sip. All right. So again, you can't just move from your seated position and go straight into exercise and expect those inactive muscle groups to automatically turn on. You have to make sure that you're doing the proper muscle activation exercises with your warm-up to ensure that those muscles are firing. You also have to make sure that you're doing the movements correctly. You have to make sure that you have correct movement patterns so that you aren't overloading your knees at the expense of, your hips. And you're not just using your chest instead of also using your upper back and your shoulders. And without that slow attention to detail or actually checking in with your form, you're not going to know. And this is why people can exercise for years or even decades and not understand all these inefficiencies and muscle weaknesses that they have, because they can get by without it. But even if they're not getting injured, they're still forfeiting all the potential gains, and they're forfeiting the better results that they could be getting if they were exercising with all of their muscle groups and actually being more efficient with exercise. So even if you're not experiencing pain with your exercise, you can still get better results by improving your muscle activation. All right. Dr. Ake. Oh, let's see here. Would dolphin push-ups help with shoulder strengthening and therefore reduce shoulder pain? I mean, they could, but I would say that you need to do is, again, I mentioned this before, but if you're doing mostly like a seated lat pull down, you can do pull-ups on a bar, you can do pull-ups with resistance. You should be doing either, you can do like a bent over row, right? Something like this. You can do, what are they called? You can do a dumbbell bent over row where you're on a bench and kind of pulling up here like this. But the point is, you need to do something where you're pulling from front to back and you're engaging the muscles in your back. The other dimension, if you have shoulder pain and if you're having issues with shoulder pain, number one, strengthening your upper back and your shoulders, again, with pulling exercises. The second part is improving your mobility with myofascial release. So there are a bunch of techniques called, there are a bunch of self-myofascial release techniques, which is basically using a crossball or using a mobility tool to release muscle tension, right? To release muscle knots, to help address trigger points, to release muscle tension, lengthen the muscle, and then allow that muscle to be more mobile. So that is another issue when it comes to shoulder pain, is probably a lack of mobility, but then again, also a lack of upper back and shoulder strength. More pulling. Do more pull-ups, do more jumps, get a pull-up bar, and just hang on it sometimes. You don't necessarily have to do a full workout, but you should be hanging or getting your arms overhead and just putting some weight there on a frequent basis. I would say try to do it every day for at least a minute. It doesn't have to be all at once, and it doesn't have to be with your full body weight, but it's going to help make your shoulders feel way better. Dr. A, currently working on my RYT 200. This is excellent information. Cool. Yes. Hope this helps. All right. So let me see if there's anything else that I can talk about. Again, I talked about all the stuff that muscle activation can do for you, improving your overall performance, increasing the effectiveness of your workouts, helping you get more significant results, preventing injury. That's a big one. If you're not exercising properly, injury happens. The reason why injury happens, the number one goal of any exercise program should be injury prevention. You're making your body stronger so that it doesn't get hurt. So, by definition, you shouldn't be getting injured by your workouts. Your workouts should be making you stronger. Your workouts are calculated stress upon the body. And every now and then, you might have muscle tears or tweaks, or, you might have to take a week off or maybe just a couple of days off. And that's normal. That's part of exercise. Sometimes we push ourselves too hard. Sometimes we try new things and we're not sure what we're doing. But if you're always, but if all of your workouts give you pain, that's an issue. And I think that really does come down to a lack of the proper muscle activation and poor movement patterns. And that's what I want to teach you in the Strength Foundations course. So if you want to learn more about that, I posted it in the comments. You can also go to the Manful Yoga website. To join, you just need to sign up for the members area. And that is a $1 fee. So it's $1 that gets you your trial, gets you access, and then you choose your plan. And one more thing about this, the members area is closing for enrollment on Sunday, July 8th. So you will not be able to join the members area starting on Monday, July 9th. So if you have any interest in joining the program or interest in any of my other programs, Bulletproof Your Back, Bulletproof Your Knees, the Posture Fixer Upper, all of these programs, there's over 25 in the members area. There's over 250 workouts total in the members area. You need to sign up by July 8th, Sunday, to get access to that content. And that's all at manfulyoga.com. Other question, I have a herniated disc from overworking. This happened over a year ago. Now all my squats and deadlifts give me pain, even with light weight. You should not be doing deadlifts or squats. You need to be working on that herniated disc. If you haven't already seen a physical therapist, please do. Because I can't tell you just looking at you. I can't tell you just by you telling me that you have a herniated disc, like to what degree is your disc herniated? So yeah, you're gonna have to work on your core strength and your hip mobility for sure though. Yeah, I would not be doing deadlift at all if you have a herniated disc. Definitely yoga, definitely focus on your mobility. But actually, sorry, not definitely yoga, because a lot of yoga will actually exacerbate that problem and make it worse. So first off, you need to figure out what exercise you can do that doesn't hurt. And then you need to do that exercise to get stronger. But again, I'd highly recommend speaking with a physical therapist, as they have lots of experience and knowledge in that area. Do you recommend hot yoga for weight loss? No, I do not. Hot yoga is not great for weight loss. If you want to lose weight, tell them to sit less, and you want us to have them do a pigeon stretch, or they want to have them stretch their external hip rotators. Clayton, anything we can do when we are sitting at the desk, sometimes get involved in what I'm doing and forget to get up and doing some activation. Clayton, you hit the nail on the head there. You just need to get up and move more often. Set timers for yourself every hour or so, or just at the top of every hour, get up and walk around or do some stretches. Doesn't have to be much. It can just be 1 or 2 stretches, maybe 2 minutes of stretching. Whenever you're on a phone call, get up for that if you can. But yeah, I mean, if you're sitting at your desk, you want to be as active as possible. So make sure that you're pushing down through your feet as you're sitting. So you're pushing down through your heels, you're pushing down through your toes, you're lifting your chest up and getting as tall as you can. You can even squeeze your glutes while you're sitting to help with that. All right, other questions. I noticed my knees are popping more. All right, so David, that's not so much a question of relieving knee pain, so much as strengthening your hips, your glutes, and your core. So Dave's question is, I noticed my knees are popping more. Are there any moves to relieve that? You can do lots of different stretching to relieve knee tension, but you should be doing exercises that correct why you're getting knee tension in the first place. And the reason that's happening is because you're probably not doing your exercises correctly. You probably don't have the right muscle activation. You're probably not using your glutes. You're probably not using your core very well. And your hips probably aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So you need to work on your hip strength, your glute strength, and your core strength. And you need to make sure that those muscles are engaging when you're exercising. Again, I've got a course coming up called the Strength Foundations course that specifically focuses on exactly this. So if you have knee pain right now, if you're watching this and you have knee pain when you exercise and you want to get rid of it, the Strength Foundations course is going to do that. And if it doesn't, just tell me that sucked and I'll give you your money back. I'm happy to do that. But I guarantee you that doing these exercises is going to relieve knee pain. It's going to make your knees better. All right, other question. If you have tight hips, do I need to strengthen my core? So if you have tight hips, do you need to strengthen your core? It's not, tight hips could be a function of, hold on, sorry. The message isn't like it's going over my head. If I have tight hips, do I need to strengthen my core? So if my hip flexors are tight, do I need to strengthen my core? The two aren't really, I wouldn't say that that's related. If you have tight hips, that means that you're not stretching that means you have poor hip mobility. Strengthening your core is great, and you should do that for sure. But if you have tight hips, that's because you have bad hip mobility. So you need to work on your hip mobility. You need to work on stretching your hip flexors. You need to make sure that you are strengthening your hip flexors and your glutes in extended range of motion. You need to make sure that you are doing exercises, again, that strengthen your hamstrings in their full range of motion. Not just stretching, but also working on active range of motion and building strength within full range of motion. Oh, that is all the questions I have. Thank you so much. Hey, you're welcome. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks, Drake. All right, Dennis has a question. Have you already reached your fitness goal? If not, what is it? I don't have a fitness goal. I just enjoy working toward things. So my goal is just to be able to do what I want to do. And right now, my goal is to be able to play lacrosse at my highest level without the fear of injury. And so what I'm doing for that is I'm doing more resistance training so that I can be stronger on the field. And then I will also start doing more dynamic training, more sprinting. In addition to, I'm also working on much more active range of motion exercises with yoga to help strengthen my hips, to strengthen my core more, and to strengthen, so just to get stronger. That's my goal. Just get stronger and be better at what I do. I don't have specific goals though. I really don't. I want to be the best that I want to be as strong as I can. I want to feel really strong. I also am trying to get up to 180 pounds. That's my other goal. I've always been around 165, so I've been eating a lot more food lately. I've went from 165 up to 171 in about a month, but I also got sick, so that left me with a lot of that caused me to lose a lot of weight. How do we work with hypermobility in yoga? You don't go as far as you can into the pose. So if you're hypomobile, there's no reason for you to go deeper into the pose. So for you, you want to scale back on going deep into the pose. You want to find a degree of the pose or a depth of the pose that challenges your endurance and your strength, but isn't you pressing as deep as you possibly can into the pose. So Mr. Steve Gray, that's your answer. Don't focus on flexibility when you're doing yoga. Focus on strength. And if you're doing yoga that only focuses on flexibility and passive range of motion, then you shouldn't be doing that type of yoga. Have you already reached your, I've already read that question. I want to focus on getting a defined chest. Yeah, lift weights and do push-ups. Samuel. But make sure you can do a decent push-up. I mean, if you want to build muscle, you want to be lifting weights for sure. And then you want to make sure that you're keeping your shoulders healthy and your chest healthy. But if you have back pain, there is a very good chance that it is caused by a lack of proper muscle activation. And that's exactly what I want to, and that's exactly what we're covering in this program that I've got starting next week called the Strength Foundations course. Fun fact, I originally called this program the Muscle Activation Program, but I wanted to call it something different because I'm not sure if everyone understands the muscle activation, the importance of muscle activation, and really what proper muscle activation leads to is having a strong foundation of fitness. It leads to having a strong foundation of strength that will allow you to do what you want to do physically. If that means you want to be a better runner, if that means you want to lift more weight and be able to do more and get less soreness. If you want to be a better athlete, if you want to be better at yoga even, this is going to help you be better at yoga. It will help you deepen your practice. It will help you get deeper into the postures. It's going to help you hold the postures for a longer time. It's also going to help give you strength and mobility to be able to do more advanced poses like crow pose, like forearm stand, and even handstands. So this is what that program is for. This actually is my favorite program that I've ever developed because it's such a useful program. And for me, if I had known this stuff prior to getting injured or in my recovery process, when I was younger, I had knee surgery when I was 16. I had issues with my knees over and over and over again. I had I had problems as late as 2014, 2015 with these issues. And if I had known what I know now and what I'm teaching with the Strength Foundations program, I would have really dramatically reduced my risk of injury. I won't say that it would have been eliminated, but I would have dramatically reduced my injury, and it might not have happened at all. What philosophy of yoga do you personally follow? I don't follow any philosophy of yoga. My focus on yoga is on fitness, and nobody else does that. So most of what I learn is integrated with other movement practices. So I don't know what to tell you. I'm really kind of like the anti-yoga guy. I think my guiding philosophy of yoga is on active muscle engagement while doing yoga instead of passive engagement. What I really like about yoga is that it's slow and controlled, and that it can develop strength in a way that's different from the other types of workouts that I do. So when I'm lifting weights, or when I'm running on a field, or when I'm doing calisthenics, those are all different from what I do when I do yoga. When I'm doing yoga, I'm actually slowing down and I'm staying in one particular position for 30 seconds or 60 seconds or 90 seconds. And I'm developing body awareness in that. And I'm developing better muscle activation. I'm understanding which muscles I should be engaging. I'm understanding, how to improve my mobility and when I'm doing that, and work deeper into the postures. And that's my philosophy, is I'm getting what I'm not getting from my other workouts in yoga, but I'm focusing on active muscle engagement and active mobility for the most part, because that's what gets the best benefit. So some people that I like to follow on Instagram, for example, you asked about like people that I don't follow any yoga gurus, because yoga gurus I follow the people that I trust. Dr. Kelly Starrett, the mobility WOD guy. There's a guy named Hunter Fitness on Instagram. He's awesome. BJ Gador is pretty smart. He's the former director of Men's Health. What other books do I have here? Jill Miller is pretty cool. Jill Miller has something called the Role Model. She teaches you how to use mobility tools to improve mobility. And she's a yoga instructor, but she integrates all this other stuff into her practice. She's not just yoga. So, Marky Matt gives me a thumbs up. Cool. Thanks, Marky. All right. Reason I need suggestions because I had an eating disorder and alcohol problems, so my body's been damaged from being unhealthy. Yeah, Samuel, for that. Yeah, Samuel, fitness is part exercise, it's part sleep, it's part diet, and it's part stress management. So you need to be doing all of those things. I just had a few series of live Facebook conversations and YouTube conversations with a guy named Jesse, who's an Austin-based fitness expert. He has something called Central Athlete. And if you look back on our Tuesday uploads, so just go into the uploads of youtube.com/manfulyoga. Look for uploads that we did on Tuesday, and we've got a bunch of talks about exercise, about sleep and stress management, and just eating in general that you can get more info there. I respect your point of view. I'd like for you to look into. You may be interested in them. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to look into them because I've already been exposed to them. Yeah. All righty. Cool. Well, thanks guys for joining. I hope you enjoyed that talk. I hope you learned something about improving your muscle activation. I'm still the anti-yoga instructor. So that is still me. If you have not done yoga before and you've been turned off by the traditional approach to yoga, that was kind of me. That was me. I thought that yoga was great as an exercise, but I didn't understand why it needed to be spiritual. I didn't understand why I didn't understand. Well, also didn't understand what I was supposed to be doing when I was doing yoga. I didn't understand the muscles that were supposed to be engaged. I didn't understand where I was supposed to be feeling it. I didn't understand the little corrections that I had to make to improve my performance in yoga. My goal with yoga is purely performance based. I want to get stronger. And there wasn't that type of yoga. So that's exactly why I created Manful Yoga. I wanted to help people understand the proper technique. I wanted them to understand the benefits of the postures. And I wanted them to understand what they should be feeling. It took me years of going to yoga studios and watching yoga online to figure out all this stuff, because that's not something that that's not something that yoga instructors focus on. They focus more on providing an experience and less on the actual technique and the physical aspects. So for me, I wanted to make it easier for people to get those benefits, to learn the physical aspects of yoga. So I created Manful Yoga because I know that if I'm not special, I know that if I thought this, that there would be somebody else who thought that as well. So I like to put out I like to help people understand yoga on a physical fitness basis, and that's what I do. And again, this muscle activation program, aka the Strength Foundations course, is starting on Monday, July 9th. If you'd like to join, sign up for the members area. The members area enrollment period is ending on Sunday at midnight. So you must sign up by Sunday, July 8th, which is 3 days from now, in order to participate in the Strength Foundations course. I'm going to be closing the members area for enrollment because I want everyone to be on the same page. I want to be able to dedicate for this challenge, and I want to be able to dedicate my time to the members area instead of having to worry about talking about it on social media or sending out emails about it. I'm going to spend all my time on the members area. I won't worry about anybody else joining. And then we'll open it back up later on. But for now, it's going to be all members area. And I invite you to join now. To go to manfulyoga.com. There's going to be a button at the top of the page that allows you to sign up. There's a timer ticking down. Just click sign up today, sign up now, and get access when we start the program on Monday, July 9th. All right, and that's it. So guys, thanks for joining me. I had a lot of viewers today. That was pretty cool. If you're watching this later on, if you have other comments or questions, please feel free to leave them, and I'll get to it as soon as possible. Again, if you're not on my email list already and you want to get things like exclusive announcements, early access, exclusive video content, basically things that you're not going to see here on social media. And all right, guys, thanks again for watching. Hope you found this useful. Again, leave comments. Even if it's not live, leave a comment. I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. And join me for the Strength Foundations program. We start next Monday, July 9th.